Welcome to the fish tank.
Hey everybody, Fishman here, and welcome to another video. It was 9 months ago that I started this little experiment, and it is well past time that I deal with these two planters for a number of reasons. First off, I wanted to show you what the final results are, and secondly, what prompted the thumbnail is they're getting to the point where they're overgrowing those tanks. There's very little room for the fish in them anymore, and because it is so thick in there, you actually really don't get to see the fish at all much, and that actually can be quite a problem. Things can happen, you'll never notice them because you only see the first few inches of the tank, and also because the fish don't really have much in the way of room, they don't grow as well and they don't thrive as well, and like I said, it does become an issue. So I want to prune these back because I need some clippings for a couple of clients. I want to start some smaller planters, and also I want to start some similar experiments in the top row of the tanks, and of course I also need plants for them. Now, on first appearance, if you look at the one that's closest to the front of the screen, that is the gravel only. It looks like it is not as large as the other one, but the neat thing I found as I was doing clippings, the plants are all very healthy on both planters. There's no real difference that way as far as like just overall health goes. But this planter here has more plants in it. Actually, a substantial number more. I mean, it's not like a small deal. There's a lot more plants. They are shorter, but not in this particular case. This is actually a benefit because I want to take clippings and I want to plant them. And if I have really tall, thick plants, they don't plant as well, and I need bigger pots for that. I mean, this just turns out to be a lot simpler. And because there's a lot more plants in here and they're sending out more runners, I can actually leave this planter as is, just prune it back, pull a few extra plants out, thin it out a little bit in other words, and I can just put it right back into the tank. As I was trying to do the same thing with the dirted planter, I found there are actually fewer plants in there. I mean, they're much more robust, they're much longer, and they take up a lot more space, but the problem is there's a lot fewer of them. And as I was taking clippings, even the clippings I was taking, they're just too big, so it is not as useful for me. So I'll end up probably taking that whole planter, this one here, and what I'll do is I will just pull it out and then divide it up and then repot them in the whole thing, just to use the whole thing up, and then I'll probably replant this as a gravel only. Now, I have not fertilized any of these. Those two tanks these are in, they just have guppies in them and a few other things, but no fertilizer used, no CO2 is used, and the only lighting they get are those two 10K strips. They are CRI greater than 95%, so they are high quality ones, but nothing else has been done for them. That's the regime was. I fed fish, I did water changes, and that was it. There's no extra, I mean, there's nothing else done. So these are actually really growing really well, but none of the other stuff I found was necessary. I mean, obviously these are easy plants to grow. There are much harder plants that require all that other stuff to be done to them. But in this particular case, with most of the plants that I deal with, this is all that was necessary. You'll notice as I'm pruning this here, a lot of them are rejects. And I'm not rejecting them because they're not healthy plants. I'm just rejecting them because they're just too long. It's just too big to plant, and I want to put these in the top row, so there's just too much. They'll end up just taking up too much space. I do end up getting some good plants out of this for the refit for this, but it's not enough really. So like I said, I'll divide this up and then I'll use it for clients just as is. Now, in the new experiment, what I want to do is there's been a number of comments. People are saying the Vallicinaria, for the most part, removes most of the nutrients it requires through its leaves, and the roots are mostly just hold in place. So what I want to do in the new experiment is I'm going to put up a pot or an acrylic box or whatever, and I'm going to put soil in it and gravel on top just like this, but I'm not going to plant anything in it. I'm just going to leave it in the tank. And then I'm going to have pots with Vallicinaria, and I'm going to do pots with cryptocrene, and a number of other plants. I wanted to see if this soil planter thing, even though it's not being planted, will leach enough chemicals, nutrients I should say, into the water column to augment the growth of the plants. It should be interesting to see how that turns out. So 2 of the tanks are going to be done up that way, once of course they finish cycling and everything. So that's going to be, that actually should be a cool experiment. I hope that will show some interesting results, because this one certainly did. I mean, I really like these plants. I mean, I got enough, more than enough here to do some planters and get some stuff for my clients. So that's actually very beneficial. I really like that. That's kind of cool. The other thing I wanted to do is, I mean, I grow a lot of cryptococcus in the old system, and I needed some for the new one. And this is just a pot with some gravel, and as you can tell, a very large number of cryptococcus plants. This is Wentai, I think. I'm not entirely sure. I bought this forever ago. I mean, way too long ago. And all I do is just keep taking clippings off and putting in tanks for clients, and then planting them, and then you know how the cycle goes. Rinse and repeat. So I'm going to just, I started thinking I was just going to take a few off of this, and then I ended up deciding that what I'm going to do is just give it a bowl cut. I was just going to turn it all around, take all of these runners off, and then I was going to use them, or at least most of them, as plantings for the new system. But this is actually a really nice healthy plant, pot and everything. And usually what I do is I would take something like this, and I would start it up until it's nice and healthy, and then I would just bury it in the gravel in a client's tank. And then, well, months later, I would pull the pot out, snipping around it to remove any of these small clippings, and then there you go, the tank's seeded, and then I just stick that pot in another tank. Now, a lot of this stuff isn't going to be usable because, well, I mean, it was sitting in a 15-gallon tank, believe it or not, that whole thing. And some of these are damaged, but I have more than enough material here to set up the new system for set up the new clippings for the new system. And I want to get, like I said, I'm trying to get those tanks cycled and everything. I actually have a lot of fish in them now, and they're progressing. They're a little cloudy, so I think it's going through you know, the usual cycles that it goes through, and it shouldn't be too much longer before I can start showing some results, especially for the immersed one. I've actually seen some interesting stuff with that already, even though it's only been a week, but that's going to be interesting as well. So lots going on, lots of experiments I want to run. I just wanted to finish this one up just to get it out of the way, because I need to those 3 bottom tanks I need to take off completely apart, because somehow duckweed got in there. And that's another thing that fits kind of into the thumbnail as well. I find there's nothing wrong with using CO2. There's nothing wrong with using fertilizer. There's nothing wrong with any of that stuff, and using higher quality lighting. My only real problem is I end up with so much biomass. I mean, there's just so much plant material. I just can't deal with it all. I have a lot of tanks I take care of for other people, and I still find every 6 to 8 weeks I am throwing out 5-gallon pails full of plants. I mean, the cornwort was just taking over. I mean, I had to really prune that back, and I still have a number of clients' tanks where it's just it's just doing too well. And I don't want it to do better, because I find a lot of my maintenance in a bunch of these tanks is actually just like lawn care. I'm just doing lots and lots of pruning. And that is obviously great in one way, but there's just nothing I can do with all this. I mean, there's just too much material. And I don't want more, let's just put it that way. So there you go. That's me setting these up, and they're going to go into the new tanks. I think you've already seen a few clips of those. A lot of this actually got lost because my cat decided this is fun for him. This is just so much stuff going on. He just decided to get into the tank. The tabletop's relatively clean, and he can just stick his nose in everywhere and knock stuff around. I actually did a couple of redos for some planters for some clients, and he was in there eating the plants and everything. It's just kind of funny. So I'm going to set these all up like this. I'm going to do 2 cryptococcus and 2 Vallisonerias, plus I'm going to do some Java fern and everything else. I'm not going to show you all that because it gets rather repetitive. There's going to be 1 for each tank, and I want to set them up so that they can grow and whatnot. I mean, this is really easy to do. I actually think I might redo these ones here because I found this gravel was just a little too coarse, so I picked up some finer natural gravel, and I'll probably just replant all these. So if you next time you see them, there's a smaller amount of gravel grain. It's it was just a redo, so it's no big deal. So if you like this style of video, please like and or subscribe, and I will definitely be doing lots of updates on this sort of stuff as it goes along. And as I said, thank you again for watching. Bye for now, and I will see you in the next video.